Welcome to Scrolling to Death. I've heard, and listeners have heard, a lot of very difficult stories on this podcast from many parents who have lost their children. And today's story is going to be an especially tough one, but one of the most important topics parents can get educated on. When I was researching for this podcast early last year, looking up social media harms, I came across the story of Jordan DeMay. His story literally rocked me. I think because Jordan reminds me of my son, and I cannot imagine this happening to me or him, but it is happening to thousands and potentially millions of children, and that is sextortion. So today through this conversation, we're honoring the life of Jordan DeMay, and who better to introduce us to Jordan than his dad, John. Thank you, John, for being here today. I want to just ask you about Jordan. So what was Jordan like? What was he into? I'd love to just get to know Jordan.
He was just a everyday kid, right? It's kind of cliche, but he was just an all-American dude. He was a dual sport athlete for many, many years, baseball, basketball, football, all the way from, early junior high and elementary, all the way up through high school. But he was just kind of a class act. He was always joking around and goofing off, and always did well in school for the most part. He was a honor roll student and all conference basketball player in high school. So he's very dedicated to his teammates and his sports. He just really kind of lived through sports mostly for the majority of his life, and his friends. And he was the kind of kid that was always walking around with a smile on his face and cheering everybody up. And he just had a really broad, diverse group of friends. He had friends from different schools and different walks of life. And so it was kind of interesting compared to what you and I might have experienced in high school, where it was a lot more cliquey and a little bit more segregated. But so it was kind of interesting to see that. We'd go out to tournaments and stuff 3-4 hours away, and he would know people, and kids would come up to him and say hi. And so he was that guy, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So he was already making a big impression on everybody, sounds like.
Absolutely.
Do you have siblings? Do you have other kids?
I do, yeah. So both Jennifer and I, Jordan's mom divorced when he was very young, and we both remarried. And so I have two other girls who are 10 and 8 here this month.
Wow.
And Jennifer has two other girls. So Jordan had 4 sisters, 2 at her house
Whoa.
and 2 at ours. So yeah, he was a big brother, and he just loved to wrestle around, and our kids loved him, and his other sisters loved him. And
yeah. There's something really cool about a boy that has a bunch of sisters. Like he can just talk to girls. He gets girls. He gets how girls are, not he gets girls.
Yeah, that was
Okay. Awesome. And I've seen a lot of pictures of Jordan. He looks like you.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell listeners who are parents and are eager to learn about this issue and protect their kids from this issue? So what happened in March of 2022?
So in March 2022, we were just about ready to leave for Florida vacation for a couple weeks. We typically go down there for once or twice a year to vacation on the beach and visit family down there. We were going to leave on a Friday morning or a Friday afternoon. The kids were going to go to school that morning, and we are going to pick them up early. But on Thursday night, we were kind of all just kind of running around getting packed, and you can imagine how that looks with 4 kids and 2 dogs and all the things. So doing all that ruckus, and I ended up going to sleep a little bit early that night on Thursday just because I wanted to get up and be rested for the drive the next day. And so I actually passed Jordan outside on our patio. He was coming in from his girlfriend's about 10:15, and I saw him outside and passing and just said, "Hey, I'm going to bed. I'll see you in the morning." And that was the last time I saw him. Subsequently, he had just received his first text message on Instagram from a young woman named Danny Roberts, who reached out to him and friend requested him and just sent a message that said hi. He accepted the friend request and started messaging with her through the course of the evening as he was packing his bags and doing laundry and stuff. And the conversation, as you can imagine, started off innocent, just talking about each other, their school life and what they're into and sports. And then it slowly ramped up into more sexual nature. And then eventually what happened is she convinced him to send a nude picture of himself, which he did just after midnight that night. And when that happened, then Jordan found out that Danny Roberts wasn't a nice young lady. She was actually from Nigeria, who started extorting him for money. The extortion lasted from a little after midnight, and he ended up taking his life at 3:45 in the morning. So just a little more than 3 hours worth.
Of conversation.
Jordan
He was 17 or was
was
he?
17. Yep, he was just about 8-9 weeks from his 18th birthday and graduating high school. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I'm so
Yep.
sorry, John.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about what, tell me about the process of figuring out who this was that was actually messaging Jordan.
Well, it was quite interesting. Obviously, what happened in the morning when I found Jordan in his bedroom, he shot himself in his bed, and once we contacted law enforcement and things started unfolding, we really had no idea at that time. I mean, we were just his bag was on the floor right there by his bed, ready to go. He was just buying suntan lotion and a few things with his girlfriend a few hours before that. Like he was ready to go, and then all of a sudden this happened. So we really had no idea.
Yeah.
But what ultimately happened is the extortionist at some point sent his girlfriend that picture, the compromising picture. And the next day, sometime later that day, she let us know about that. And then we contacted law enforcement right away and said, hey, I don't know what this is about, but something's going on here, right? So this is the why that's starting to come together.
Yeah.
So that happened, I believe, on Saturday. Friday night, later Saturday, that happened, and then our local sheriff's detectives who handled the suicide investigation sent in Jordan's phone to the crime lab. They were analyzing his phone, but unfortunately, Jordan deleted all of his history on his phone before he died. So there was nothing on his phone. All the text messages, everything was gone. So
Is
they
an
ended up.
iPhone?
He had an iPhone. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
Okay.
they were able to get into the iPhone, which was pretty amazing in itself. But they
Yes.
did. It was deleted. They didn't find anything. So they ended up sending subpoena or what do you call it? Search warrants and preservation warrant basically to
Right.
Meta for
Right.
Instagram records, and they know that all that transcript is saved on their servers. It's never deleted on the other end, right? So they
Right.
were able to get that in. They tried a couple times and failed under the Emergency Procedures Act that they have in place. So then the FBI got involved very soon, early within the weekend, and submitted it. And then they ended up getting the data, I think, on Sunday night late
So
from Meta.
Meta refused to give the data a couple of times before, and the FBI had
At
to get
least once
involved.
to my opinion. I think it might have been twice. Yeah. Yep. That's
Okay.
right. But that's a
Okay.
whole other conversation for a little later, right?
Yep. Sure.
um,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
So once the data, they basically retrieved the entire transcript of the conversation between Jordan and the extortionist, and then they realized, obviously, after reading it, what unfolded. So I
Yeah.
think it was Monday when they ended up calling us and letting us know, hey, this is what we discovered, and it's called sextortion. I think the detectives knew exactly what it was as soon as they saw the picture, but just needed to verify it and figure it all out. I had no
Yep.
idea what it was. Even I'm former law enforcement, quite a few years back now, but it didn't surprise me that there was scams. But to have a name for this and know that it was just this expansive criminal enterprise that's happening worldwide right now, and in such a onset of an epidemic of an issue, I just had no idea. But
Yeah.
so
And
we learned about
so
it. We
two
learned about
years
the name.
ago, 2 years ago, sorry, no one had heard of this. I mean, you're former law enforcement. You said you hadn't even heard of it. Okay. All right. And now everyone needs to know about it. But yeah, so sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no. So ironically, though, about that, the FBI, the day before Jordan died, had just released an FBI bulletin that explained sextortion, what it was. Said we're getting immense um, leads and
Reports.
reports of these types of crimes from NCMEC and different things. So they wanted to put up a public awareness thing, and they did that the day before. So it was just really ramping up hard.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's even worse now. It's unbearable now.
Right. Okay. Okay. So the law enforcement was able to tell you this is sextortion. They were able to get the transcript of the conversation. Were they able to track it right away to these Nigerian men?
Well, what happened was that when the FBI grabbed it, they kind of told us what it was, and they said we'll be in touch with you. At that time, hindsight now, we really had no idea what was going on in the background. They were very quiet about what they were doing. But at some point, within the week or so, they called us in for a meeting at at the local FBI field office here. We met the agents, and we met some of the team they did a Skype thing with us from some of the agents out of their Grand Rapids office, and kind of said, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we know it is. We're going to follow it. We've gotten clearances from their superiors to move forward with the case, and they're feeling good about it. And that's all we have for you right now. And so that kind of meeting happened a few times throughout a 5 to 6 month period. And our local lead agent was he's very upfront. He was very excited. I could see the excitement in him when we met with him. So I felt comfortable that he was doing his job, and I understood why. I mean, they didn't want to talk about the case. They didn't want to give us any information. We didn't want to be targets. I mean, there's all the things, but anyhow, so they kept us abreast, and they were always 10 steps ahead of what we were learning. And then eventually what happened was they did track these guys down. They made 6 arrests total in Nigeria, and 3 of the 6 were actually charged federally in the United States, and 2 of which were extradited already. 1 is still waiting to be extradited. The 2 that were here, we've been to court with them 4 or 5 times, and they actually just pled guilty in court last month, and they're going to be sentenced here locally in our hometown of Marquette in federal court in September 5th of this year.
September 5th.
With a plea deal. They both took plea deals, and they're looking at a minimum of 15 years minimum, up to 30 years maximum.
Wow. And they'll serve here in the U.S. then?
They will serve federal prison time in the United States, yes.
Okay. Yep. And they will have an additional court case around this third person that's going to
be
extradited?
Yeah, the third suspect had his extradition hearing in Nigeria about a month ago, and he's fighting his extradition. He's trying to delay things. So he's a young man. They're all 20 or 21 years old. So the 2 that are here are brothers. The other one in Nigeria, I believe, might be even related, but it's a close friend either way. And that one's he's fighting his extradition. So we'll see. That could take another couple months. It could take 10 years. We just don't know.
Okay. So tell us about this group of men. It's just a family of guys, or it's more than that, or, and how are they working together to target young kids, mainly boys?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So what I've been learning, especially from the DOJ and the FBI and the DA's office that are seeing a lot of these cases, what we're seeing in our case specifically is they're loose. It's a loose conspiracy, right? So in our case, there was 3 guys. Actually, there was 4 that were all in the same living room together in Nigeria, and they're just small little flats, in a small space, and one does the communicating, another one does the graphics, and the other one researches Jordan. So he's pulling up all his family members, finding out who his friends are, finding out what his girlfriend's name is. So all the information is coming into the person who's communicating, and they use that information against them because it's consistent. It's nonstop. It's go, 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 pressure, 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 pressure. Don't let up. Keep asking for money. Keep threatening. Keep threatening. They don't give them any room to breathe, and they're just working in unison to make sure that happens. So they get what they need, and it's all scripted. They have a script on how they do it, when to say things, how to say things, how fast to say them, when to put the pressure on, when to take it off. It's all written and laid out, and they have people that run money for them. So when the money comes in, it goes to another third party, typically gets converted into like cryptocurrency. It'll go through a cash app, and then it'll come back to them in their, in their denominations, for their country, in their currency. And then they have other people that they buy the hacked accounts from. So they don't do all this. They work with other cells and get the information and the services that they need to do their part.
Wow. Kind of just like a terrorist organization.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, it's a low level terrorist organization, and these money guys work with all sorts of extortionists. They're working with the sextortionists. They work with pretty much any criminal enterprise that needs to launder money, basically, is what they do. And the graphics people, or the people that harvest the accounts, they go out and they make fake Gmail accounts, and then they make fake social media accounts. That's one way they make them. And then they also go and hack, and they hack accounts as well. The hacked accounts are better because they already have friend count and stuff. Whereas if they're making a new account, then they have to get users and followers to make themselves look more legit. But
Wow.
there's
Okay.
teams of people that do that specifically for money, and that's their
Right.
job. Their job is to package those accounts and sell them to other groups like mine who just do the extortionists, and then the money people are their own enterprise, and then they're all communicating loosely with one another.
Was the girl's account, Danny Roberts, was that a hacked account or a fake
That was a hacked
account?
account.
Wow. So there is a girl named that girl exists
That
somewhere.
girl does exist, yes.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of people involved, a lot of Nigerian men involved in this. Do you have any idea how many?
Don't.
Don't. Okay. How many, do we know how many kids have been targeted and reported it? Because I know there's a lot of kids that are being targeted, and I've even maybe shared the nude image, but the family's not, open to sharing that information. So do we have any numbers?
Yeah, so the number that I heard recently, the FBI released some statistics through NCMEC, which is a National Association of Missing and Exploited Children. They're the ones that the information gets reported to, and they did a study. It was like a fiscal year. I don't even think it was a full year, but it was like 13,000 cases of sextortion.
That were
So
reported.
that is right. That is reported. Most likely, the ones that reported that probably lost money and or some sort of loss there, because the majority of people that got started with the extortion that never really went anywhere, it would be my guess. They probably wouldn't report. But I met with other law enforcement officials and people in some private security side and on the national security side, and they're claiming that literally every single kid from the age of 15 to 22 is a victim of sextortion from one end of the spectrum to the other. Because if you get that message from Danny Roberts that says hi, that's sextortion. Right. That's the very beginning of sextortion. And the majority of the young people are just delete. I don't know them. Delete. But 25% are not. They're accepting. Right. And then so how far down the rabbit hole do you go? And in Jordan,
millions.
Yeah, it could be 1 million. It probably is 1 million. It's probably more than 1 million. There's 330 million people just in the United States, and 25.
And 2 years ago, it was like zero, right? Or we didn't know about it. Didn't have a name.
Yeah, it didn't really have anything. Yeah, it just didn't exist. It was existing because I do know parents that have children that were sextorted previously, but it was just completely unreported.
Yeah. Okay. And I know when I post about a sextortion story, I get comments saying this happened to my kid, this happened to my neighbor's kid.
Right.
So yeah, it's touching everybody. Okay.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that too is when we found out that Jordan was sextorted, and we found out they read parts of the transcript to us, and it was horrible. Jordan said, "I'm going to kill myself right now because of you," and they said, "Good, go ahead and do it. You better do it faster. We're going to make you do it." That's the kind of language that they used. And so when we found all that out that on Monday, we called the actual sheriff and we said, "Hey, we need to let the public know. We live in a small community of 30,000 people here." And everybody was devastated about this. I mean, they were just beside themselves that Jordan did this. The whole community was upside down. So we said, we got to let everybody know this is happening. And when we did that, it sparked all of this, right? And the biggest thing that I learned from it is the day that we did that, my phone and my messages and everything was blowing up from people all over my social circle that said, "Hey, John, I can't believe this happened. I just want to let you know, don't tell anybody, but this happened to us too. This happened to Uncle, Tommy. It happened to little Johnny." All these stories were flooding in from people local here.
Yeah.
And then when we got on the national stage on the news, then it just exacerbated. And now I get those messages every week from parents from all over the world that said, "Hey, I saw you in Fox News, or I saw you on this podcast, or I saw you wherever." And I'm in New Zealand. I'm in Africa, or wherever. And it's just like, holy cow, this. And then when you look at those tiny little 13,000 statistics and you're thinking, there's no way. It's 10 times, 100 times the amount.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was in a session at our school last week about online safety, and the tech guy talked about Jordan's story. And I was like, he has touched, I mean, this story, just like in his life, how many people he touched in his circle. Like this story has affected so many families and hopefully saved a lot of lives,
Yeah.
because it can go from innocent to suicide, like you said, in just hours. And do we have any numbers on actual suicides as a result of sextortion?
It's a couple dozen right now
Okay.
reported in the last
Reported.
2 years or something like that, right? And that's,
Okay.
coming from my law enforcement background, and again, that was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
even in our situation, had that picture not been sent to Jordan's girlfriend, law enforcement detectives would have came in, obvious suicide, all the signs were there, there's no foul play, right? And we
Right.
move on, case closed, and we all go to the funeral, we
Okay.
cry, and we move on. And
Right.
you just always wonder. But, and I step back and think, and this is what I tell my law enforcement friends and groups that I talk to now. It's like, we have to do a little bit better. When we have these situations like Jordan, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't right. This kid isn't like, this, we know when the kids have mental health issues, and that's a whole other element, right? This isn't our
Mm-hmm.
story. So when we
Yeah.
have these kids that are in the situation that don't have previous histories, I think we have to
Right.
just take that extra step forward, really look at those phones, get into those social media accounts, work with the parents, and try to tap into those. And if you can't get in them, there's probably a
Mm-hmm.
reason for it. So we have to really push it as
Mm-hmm.
far as we can, but it becomes a legal issue because you can't just go to Meta and get transcripts from their Facebook account when they're 16 or 17. Unfortunately, you have to get search warrants from that, and you have to have probable cause to get a search warrant. Our case, it was a picture that was sent to his girlfriend trying to extort her. That was the probable cause that gave us the open
Mm-hmm.
door to get that transcript. So no
Mm-hmm.
picture, no warrant, no case. And
Right.
here we are in this giant story, in this massive case, the first one in
Mm-hmm.
United States history with extradition from another country,
Mm-hmm.
all
Yeah.
came because those detectives pushed a little bit harder and got that transcript, and took that case and ran with it. So
Yeah.
it's
Thank
a big
God.
deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah. Are they going to extradite more of these men now that we have started the ball rolling?
Well, that's the hope, right? And I think what
Yeah.
happened in our case, the moon and the stars aligned. I mean, I think there's a lot of luck involved in ours, only because the head of the FBI in Michigan at the
Mm-hmm.
time, he just retired a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
was had relationships from 25 years ago when he was a young agent stationed in Lagos, Nigeria. Those
Wow.
people he was
Wow.
stationed with are now in the upper echelon of their uh,
Wow.
uh, department. So when we
Yeah.
found out about it, they made calls over to here, and they're like, "Yeah, I have guys, and we're going to work together." And they assigned a couple young guys that I happened to meet in the states when they did the extradition, and they're like,
Wow.
"Yep, let's do it. We're going to get it." And they put it together and ran with it. But
Yeah.
you have to have the relationships for that, and they have to have
Mm-hmm.
a treaty too. And that's the other thing, because a lot of these extortion cases are coming from the Ivory Coast and a lot of other places that
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit more difficult to work with. And every
Mm-hmm.
presidential administration that they have, or however they do in their
Mm-hmm.
government, changes. And there's a lot of corruption in a lot of different countries. So there's all these other elements that come into play
Yeah.
when we
Right.
start talking about pulling citizens out of their countries and prosecuting them in the United States.
Okay. Okay. So we can't really rely on just extraditing all of them and trying them as a solution to
No,
stop this.
no, and it's
Um,
expensive. I mean, there's millions of dollars involved just in Jordan's case to get these guys here.
wow.
Millions.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
huge money.
Okay. In this group, am I accurate that they're calling themselves, or we're calling them the Yahoo Boys?
No, that
Oh no.
is
Okay.
that is another affiliate group, kind of like we
Okay.
discussed before, and they were building content on how to do this.
Okay.
And
Okay.
our
Good to know.
our yeah, our suspects, I think, were being educated. It's like going on YouTube and figuring out how to fix the kitchen sink, and you follow a specific plumber. They just teach you all the tips and tricks on how to fix sinks and leaks and plumbing. These guys do
Okay.
that specifically for sextortion and other on internet crimes, and they give scripts, they give educational videos, everything, and it's all on YouTube to watch, or was
These
anyway.
scripts, sextortion scripts and instructional videos
Yep.
were on YouTube.
Hmm. Yep.
For how long?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, but
But
they've
they
been
called
reported in the
themselves the
group.
Yahoo Boys, and they weren't necessarily a specific group. They weren't a
Okay.
collaborative group. They were more of a club, if you will. So
Okay.
I think they called themselves, if you were kind of in a kind of a in a culture. if you were
Yeah.
participating in their program. Basically, you were
Right.
a Yahoo boy if you were playing into their program, basically.
Wow. Okay. Um, let's let's talk about who's getting targeted. So I know that it's typically teenage boys, but is there more similarities in who's been targeted?
It's kind of interesting because the boys that I know, all the parents that I've met, I've seen pictures and, we have relationships with these people. And it's
Uh-huh.
kind of interesting because a lot of the boys, if we were to stick them all in a room together, they could
Mm-hmm.
all be brothers, right? They might be a different color, but they're all going to be brothers. They're all 6'2". They're all athletes. They're all, well mannered, educated. It's just that's kind of the thing. And the
Mm-hmm.
girls too. It's happening to girls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say that it's a specific thing because it's happening to both girls and boys, and it's happening to adults as well. So
Mm.
I think the adults
Yeah.
just have a little bit more process. They don't necessarily commit suicide, but they're dishing out money all the time. um, and
They
it's
have the
happening.
money to
They're,
dish.
they have the money to dish, right? And the young people, I'm seeing a pattern of a profile that they're looking for kids that have everything put together, right? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
find somebody that doesn't necessarily have anything in life and it's not really put together and doesn't have anything to lose, it's going to be awfully
Mm-hmm.
hard to extort them because they're like, whatever, go ahead and show my friend. I don't have a girlfriend, or go show my mom. I don't care. What is she going to do,
Okay.
right?
Right.
When you go to a person that, is educated and is looking at scholarships and, doing all those things and has all this life in front of them, and you say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to show this to your girlfriend who you've been dating for a year and a half, you think you're going to marry, then you're a little more apt to start paying some money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Okay.
would say that would be a little bit more of a profile that they're looking for.
Okay. Wow. Which platforms are you seeing this happen on mostly?
Instagram and Snapchat.
Okay. And in your case, Meta, who runs Instagram, uh, denied the request for the data a couple of times before the FBI got involved. So is it generally difficult for these families to get the data needed to figure out what happened?
Yes, extremely.
Okay. Um, Same across the board, Meta and Snapchat, both just as difficult.
I'm not as familiar with Snapchat per se,
Okay.
but the rules still apply. I know that Meta has an emergency procedure. So if law enforcement go, they have their own portal and their own access to a certain department within Meta that can say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, there's a drug deal going down right now, and we need information off Facebook because it's critical and it's life safety, and somebody could die in an hour. We need information now. They can
Yeah.
put that in. Meta will approve it and send them the information so law enforcement can get on it, right? In
Mm-hmm.
our case, they tried to do that because this was an active thing. Jordan had already died. They were already extorting other people with the same type of script because as they were
Mm-hmm.
peeling back the onion, they were figuring all this out, and they were concerned that it was going to keep continuing on. So they
Mm-hmm.
tried to get it through this emergency side, which was denied. Their other
Mm-hmm.
avenue is basically the long road, which could take 4 to 6 weeks. So in their
Mm-hmm.
mind, they're like, we don't have 4 to 6 weeks because 10 other people could die, because of this.
Yeah.
So they tried pushing it through the emergency side, which they denied. And I don't know what they did to make the change, or they must have done something in the affidavit to them or their application process that made them
Okay.
approve.
Okay.
So
Are these platforms, now that this has become such a well-known issue, are these tech companies doing anything to stop it?
no, nothing,
Okay.
not a thing. No, they're not doing anything. They say they're doing things, but they're not. It's happening every day. I got a call a week ago. Lady in Kalamazoo, 6 hours from here. Woman,
Mm-hmm.
young girl,
Mm-hmm.
shot herself.
And this was on Instagram or Snapchat?
I don't know the story yet. I just heard it from another parent.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm sure you saw Meta's update maybe 2 weeks ago. They're
Mhm.
to fight sextortion, we are now going to blur nude images in direct messages. And I was like, great, that's so great. And so then I actually read the fine print, and they are making it so they're blurred, but there's just a little overlay that says this could be nudity. Are you sure you want to click, or click to open?
Click
So
these,
they're
yeah,
blurring it,
and then you
but
can
you can,
click to see it now, right?
yes,
Yeah,
which is so devious. It's like, if you can identify it in order to blur it, then why even let it be viewed at all, especially imagery not going to talk about adults if they want to send nude images, but like
Great. Absolutely.
minors images,
Yep.
minors nude images, you're going to let them be seen. And you're telling me a teenager's not going to want to click on a blurred image that might be nudity?
Right. Of course they are.
Like,
Of course they are.
so that doesn't help the sextortion situation at all. In
No.
fact, it encourages it in
Right.
my mind.
It fosters it, because the criminals on the criminal side are going, it doesn't matter. They're not doing anything about it anyway. Look, they're saying they're doing stuff, but they're not. So they'll keep going. Right. And then Section 230 under the federal code gives all social media companies blanket immunity for pretty much anything. They cannot be held liable for anything that happens on their platform. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. And that's where the fight needs to happen. But if you go back and watch I attended a hearing with all the CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg and the others in Washington, D.C.
January 31st.
January 31st. If you go back and watch that hearing, when you can see exactly what you're talking about, Ted Cruz put up a big billboard, and it was a picture of that. And it said, this may contain child pornography and adult-like content. Two choices. One, delete, or two, see content now. And that was an actual screenshot of what Facebook was using. So it says it's child pornography possibly and nudity, but go ahead and click that button and you can see it anyway. Don't worry about it. Right. Yeah. So his argument and my argument was that they know it's child pornography. They know it exists, and they put a label on it and then call themselves, we're doing something, but they're letting people watch child porn on their website.
And they're doing that because it drives engagement. It keeps these people on the platform, which allows them to sell ads around the
user count is everything for them. They aren't going to go through and delete user count, because they can go to Target and Walmart and say, look at our user count. It's this big. All these people are going to see the potential of all these people seeing your ads is worth money. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they start slashing all the fake accounts and getting it boiled down to what's actually legitimate on a platform, they'd be down to half. And I don't think they could even sell advertising money the way that they do. So they're not going to delete user count.
It's criminal, right?
It is. It's very criminal.
Wow. And yeah, this law, Section 230 from 1996, it makes it so that they are not liable for what happens on their platform.
Correct.
That they're just message boards, and anything that happens on there is just everyone else's deal. But the problem is that they now influence so much of what's being seen and said and done through their algorithms and through the quick ad features and through the geolocators and all these things, that they have to have some liability. And there are some lawsuits from a lot of the families whose children died from a fentanyl lace pill purchased on Snapchat. There's all those families doing
choking challenges, all kinds of things.
Yeah, choking challenges. So we're hoping to see some amendment to Section 230 anytime now would be nice.
We filed a lawsuit also.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Okay.
Did.
I meant to ask you that. So you filed a lawsuit against Meta?
We did. Yep.
Okay.
It's the only way we're going to get them to stop. I mean, we have to, in my opinion on it, and I speak through the screen here to Mark Zuckerberg because I know he's watching me. And if your business is so above board and you think you're doing such great things, then just go ahead and get rid of Section 230. We as parents can sue you all day, and you can put your tie on and walk into a courtroom and be confident you're going to win because your business is run so well and you're so protective of everybody. You don't even have to worry about Section 230 because that's what you're telling the American people, but that's not what's happening in the back end. So if you think your business is above board, get rid of Section 230 and let's find out. Because parents like me will sue you for $500 million each. And then finally someday when you lose a bunch of money, that's the only way things are going to change.
So devastating. It's devastating that that kids have to die and lawsuits have to be filed by the families in order for them to change their behavior. Like we cannot put profits over children's lives. Like I get that they need to, like have profits coming in, but we can't have children dying. Like we can't have anybody dying.
I'm a huge capitalist. I'm all about capitalism. I think I'm a small business owner, work hard, run a good business. I've been doing my business for 17 years now. Never been sued, never lost any money because my business is above board and we do things properly. Now, I go out there and make money, produce employment, be civilized, do all the things. This is awesome, but you have to draw the line in the sand. You can't build algorithms and show people how to commit suicide. You can't build algorithms and show them how to do a choking challenge so they go in their bedroom and die from choking on something or a fentanyl pill, or let the Yahoo boys run ads on how to kill teenagers with sextortion, or the terrorist organizations that are doing it to do bombs and all the other things that are happening online. It's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
absurd. And the fact that
Yep.
we as Americans are sitting here going, "Oh shit," I guess so. We might as well let it happen. I don't know. I don't have to worry
Or
about it. Like,
yeah, it won't happen to my
it
kid.
won't happen to
You
me,
know.
right?
Yeah,
So
it's horrible.
it's sad.
Okay, so in right now as we're sitting here and nothing, this legislation has not passed. These lawsuits are still all in process. Instagram, Snapchat, these platforms are very harmful for kids. And how do you feel about kids and teens' use of social media now? Like, would you say that they're safe?
No, adults aren't safe
Mm-hmm.
on social media. I mean, I'll be straight up
Mm-hmm.
with you. They're not. There's really nothing on social media that's positive enough that outweighs all the negative that's happening. You could
Yeah.
shut social media off on a light switch, and every single person, you and I, our spouses, kids, friends, family, everybody in the community, everybody in the state, and everybody in the country, everybody in the world would be better off in the next 48 hours. There's just all the nonsense that happens on social media. It's all fake. You have this parallel reality that runs, and people are so consumed with it. They don't even pay attention. They don't even realize what's happening in their real life. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not, and I say, Jordan, we're here talking about sextortion and the kids. We don't even have enough breath and enough time in our lifetime to protect the adults on social media. I'm not even here for that. I mean, if you're going
Right.
to go doing
Me
things
either.
on social media, good luck to you. You're an adult. You're going to deal with it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
if you want to put the kids away and go over the adult side,
Mm-hmm.
women are being shamed on what they should look like and what they should be doing and all these things. I mean, it's putting this whole sense of what is unreal into their mind. And then they try to
Yeah.
go into an adult relationship and they don't even understand it. Men are
Mm-hmm.
going into relationships that don't understand it because this is what they expect, because this is what they saw on social media their whole life. How
Mm-hmm.
to act, how to
Yeah.
dress, how to think, seeing all the misinformation that's coming through. We dealt with it
Mm-hmm.
with COVID. I mean, it was just all, every time you even typed the word COVID, social media caught that and blocked it, didn't they? Or anytime somebody had a pretty solid theory about what was going on with COVID, gone,
Yep.
deleted, never saw it again. Turns out it was all right at the end of the day, but at the time they just got rid of it. But
Yeah.
they can't do that with extortion or fentanyl pills or gang violence or all these other things that are happening on social media. I just
No,
don't get it.
I don't get it either. And I'm right with you that I don't think it's positive for almost every adult, really any adult. But I can't control what adults do.
Nope,
I can't
absolutely not.
influence what adults do. But when it comes to protecting children, we can absolutely, from things like death and suicide and overdoses and poisonings and all those things, but just the pure mental health issues that these kids
Absolutely.
are dealing with and the addiction. Like we
Absolutely.
got to start from there. And then, well, we got to start with the kids that are dying. Let's
Yeah.
start there. And then let's bring it through to like, what do you feel like? Do you feel like kids shouldn't be allowed?
Yeah. No,
Like some states are doing 18.
18. I mean, that's my kids
Okay.
will not have social media in my house. If they live in my house, I don't care if they're 20, they're not having social media in my house. That's my
Okay.
rule.
Yeah.
If you want to have social
How
media,
are
move.
you? Yeah, and I'm with you too. How are you going to control that? Are you going to get them like a kid safe phone, like a Bark phone or something like that? Or
That's
what do you think?
it's a struggle. It really
Yeah.
is. And I got
Yeah.
Jordan a phone when he was young. His mom moved away for a couple years, and
Hmm.
um, I felt like it was a good thing for them to communicate when they wanted to. But I had a
Sure.
ton of
Yeah.
restrictions. It was an iPhone. It had a lot of parental controls. We had
Hmm.
Verizon. Verizon had a lot of parental controls. I
Hmm.
made him sign a contract. We put all these rules on paper when he was like
Yeah.
11, and I made him sign it, right. And
Yep.
then we had a
Yep.
Wi-Fi router that was separate from my wife and I's, that had a separate password, so he couldn't get on ours. And then I had a
Yeah.
timer on that, so it shut off, so he couldn't get on the
Wow, John.
internet. I
You
did
did
everything
everything
you could
right.
ever do.
Yep. Yep.
After he got a little older, I made him sit down at the dinner table and read his text messages from his girlfriend to the family while we ate dinner. It was I
Yeah.
just did everything I could do.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that tech companies will get a little bit better too, because to this day I can't go into Verizon or anywhere and get a cell phone that doesn't have all this on here. Like,
Hmm.
can I just get a phone that's got an internet connection and then that's it? And then there's no Facebook. You couldn't even put Facebook or Instagram on
Mm.
it. Like, it wouldn't
Yeah.
even be possible.
Yeah, so Gab phone and Bark phone, these companies are only a year, 2 years old, and they let you. The parent has full control. You can have them just text and call,
Yeah.
and you can control who they text and call. So
Yeah.
they can't even add a contact without you knowing. So luckily now there are products coming up that
That's
are a
good.
little
Yep.
bit better, but we still can't. And they send alerts to parents if something harmful is sent to your child, or your child sends something harmful. But we still can't get far enough into like Snapchat and Instagram to monitor certain things because we can't get into their API.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sammy's Law is one of the bills federally that will let us put that deep parental monitoring on so we can get to all that content. And I did see a headline from NBC News that mentioned Jordan. So Biden to sign new bipartisan law targeting child sextortion online. Do you know about this? Can you tell me about this?
Is that the not COSA, but
Blumenthal. Did I see
oh, that is
Blumenthal?
COSA. No, it's stop or boy,
Marsha Black. Okay, Report Act.
Report Act. Yes. Yeah. So there was
Okay.
the Report Act. There was COSA. COSA is another one that was supported heavily by senators. That was over in the House, I think, right now,
Okay.
being voted on. So I think the Report Act kind of made it up, and Biden is supposed to sign it. Is that new today? That headline?
No, this is from a couple days ago.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
from April, May 4th, 3
Yeah.
days ago.
Yeah. So he hasn't
And
signed it
so,
yet, I don't believe.
okay. And Report Act is will require online platforms and social media companies, they required to report child sex trafficking and online enticement to NCMEC. So putting the burden on them. And so hopefully that will allow, if they don't do that and your child gets sextorted, then you can sue under this law. Hopefully. That's how I'm reading it. But I'm
Right.
going to find out more about this. I'm going to talk to some of my lobbying guys and get some more.
Yeah, from my understanding, from our attorneys and stuff talking about some of these bills, that is kind of the loophole I think they're going to find, is that the attorneys will weasel their way in and say, hey, you didn't report Jordan's case and therefore he died, so therefore that's our in. And I think that's probably the way it's going to play out. We'll have to see what happens. It's going to play out for a few years for those first cases that come to the courts, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I know we're running short on time. So what else do you think that parents need to know about sextortion that we didn't already cover?
I think it's just, I don't know that parents need to understand really what sextortion is more than what it is, right? I mean, it's pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extortion scheme. It's very private. Kids don't want to tell their parents. I think we just have to, one, be strong parents and keep kids off social media. They just don't belong there. You know, their entire world, good, bad, and otherwise, is right at their fingertips. And I use this analogy: if your 14-year-old daughter wanted to go to the strip club with her friends tonight, Friday night, 8:30, 9 o'clock, they want to head down to the strip club. Would you let your daughter do that? No. Would you let your son do that? No. Yeah. You wouldn't even let them do it when they're 17. And the strip club, I would let my kid to the strip club before I put them on social media, because you know why? Right. Everything in that strip club is controlled, and it's an environment that's probably pretty safe. Mm-hmm. It is not on social media. There's nudity, there's death, there's everything, there's body shaming, there's fat stuff, there's just everything you can possibly imagine is at their fingertips, and they're seeing it at all times of the day. Yeah, sad. You've got to keep them off. Yeah. And I think a big win for me would be if social media just said 18 and under, and that's it. And I know there's some bills that are starting to put some age limits on it. Matter of fact, Ron DeSantis in Florida put an age restriction on his at 16, I think, which was solid. I think it should be 18.
Tennessee did 18.
Okay.
But parents can give permission under 18.
Yeah, and that's a parent's stupidity if they do that. But at least it's there. So when your child says, "Can I have it?" and you're like, "No, it's not. It's a law, and you can't have it." Are you gonna let me have it? No, I'm not going to.
Yeah, and they can't sign up on like a second phone or on their own, on their iPad or whatever. They can't do it by themselves. So I find it to be really helpful. And that strip club analogy is interesting because I signed up on Snapchat as a 14-year-old girl, just had a little test account. I gave them no information, just started scrolling through the For You feed. And within 20 minutes, I saw video from inside of a strip club, strippers dancing inside of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the strip club is in your phone along with all these other harms.
Absolutely. And then once you click on something like that, the algorithm picks it up and gets what you're seeing all on your feed.
Right. And I keep checking that test account, but I feel like now that I have had to pause and videotape some of these harmful things. And now I feel like it's just going to keep serving me harmful things, which is how the algorithm works. It doesn't have a morality filter that's like, maybe this 14-year-old shouldn't be seeing sexual content.
Right.
Right.
Right. And the other thing is tech companies could do, I mean, there's all kinds of little things too. Like, for instance, this laptop I'm on right now has an IP address. It's dedicated to this laptop only. What's happening is these groups of people are going out with this laptop and they're creating, say, 50 or 100 accounts, or I'm the extortionist, right? And I'm extorting a dozen people at the same time using a dozen different accounts on this IP address. The technology isn't that difficult to catch that. If you have an
Mhm.
IP address that's operating multiple accounts at the same time, it should be flagged immediately.
Yeah.
And why don't we have verification on social media? When you get a Snapchat account, on the back
Mhm.
end, it's called KYC in the financial world. It's know your
Mhm.
customer. So when you go get a
Mhm.
crypto exchange account or you go get a bank account at a US bank,
Mhm.
you provide a driver's license, a passport or something. They identify who you are. You have an address and they say, okay,
Right.
you're a real person. Now you can
Right.
have your account. You can have one. You can't have
Mhm.
7. So
Mhm.
we need to limit accounts. We need to track IP addresses. All these
Yeah.
things that could be happening, and that could all be done electronically.
Yeah, and these kids do. They all have multiple accounts.
Mm-hmm.
One kid I reported on that passed away recently had like 7 different Snapchat accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And Snapchat's terms of service says that you cannot have more than one account, but they don't enforce it. That's
Right.
just they just put it in there for PR.
Right. Of course we
So
do.
it's all bad, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, I'm so sorry about what happened to Jordan.
I have
His
some more
story
time,
is
by the
gonna.
way, too. I'm
Oh,
good.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
Okay.
my wife texted
Um.
me. I had to get my kids to a dentist
Okay.
appointment, but I'm good. So.
We shared what you want parents to know about sextortion, what parents need to tell their kids, and that we don't need to go in great detail. I mean, unless your kids, of a certain age, I think it's appropriate to tell them that you may be asked for a nude photo. But even at 8 years old, I'm telling my daughter, like, no one gets to see your body. Like, there's ways to talk about this kind of thing because
Mm-hmm.
maybe 10 years ago, like we could share no, we shouldn't have probably, but we could share nude photos and you weren't getting extorted over it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing
Um,
too. And we had those conversations with Jordan early on, even partly too because
yeah.
that phone was not his; it was mine. It was in my name, and I'm like,
Hmm.
do not take photos, do not get photos, do not have any photos with body parts on it
Yeah.
because it's my phone,
Yeah.
and that's child pornography on my device, not yours.
Right.
So
Right.
I try to put it on me a little bit too, and parents need to understand that too because they could get in trouble, but. I think at the end of the day, as parents, we just need
Yeah.
to do a little bit better. And one thing that I probably did not do enough, we're
Uh-huh.
really traditional on raising our children, a little old
Hmm.
school, but it's not no 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 no. It's hey, if you do, right? If you do this,
Yes. Right.
quit being R worded. Like get on. It's okay. Like
Yeah.
you made a mistake. It was stupid, but this is what
Hmm.
happens if you do it. And I think
Yeah.
we need to spend a little bit more time as parents doing that, but.
Yeah.
Um,
There's lots of data that kids just don't tell their parents when something harmful happens online because their parents, like, we're mostly going to freak out, and we need to take a breath and not freak out, whether it's if they saw pornography or they sent a nude image or anything. Um, and that's something that we need to work on now, and just take that deep breath and not overreact, because they're not going to come to us if we give them that trauma reaction.
no. No, not at all. And I get it's sad though because even 4 6 weeks after Jordan died, there was a local kid here,
Mm-hmm.
same at New Jordan, probably at his funeral. Um,
Mm-hmm.
his dad messaged me and said, "Hey, my son did this. Don't tell anybody. Nobody knows, but wanted to tell you to support." And he came to me, but it has happened to him. He knew Jordan. He knew Jordan's story, and still did it anyway. And Jordan just died a month
Oh,
before.
wow. Jesus
So
Christ.
he just went right down the rabbit hole, knowing what was happening, and still did it. So that's what we're dealing with here. And so part of
Mhm.
the awareness is children, but at the end of the day, I think the awareness needs to go to the parents directly, and then the
Mhm.
awareness and the notice needs to go to social media and the government because that's where it has to stop.
Mhm.
The only way we're really going to put our finger on this is to get that to stop at the top and start making some serious change so it filters
Yeah.
down because the ground this is a battle zone. I mean, every single kid is getting sextorted, every single
Yeah.
one.
We can't expect a teenage boy who gets contacted by a pretty young girl and wanting to share image. Like, we just can't expect them,
Cannot.
especially these men who are working from proven scripts that
Yeah.
they've tried on thousands or more other kids, so they know exactly what to say, exactly
Yes.
what to send, and when to send it. Like, our kids have no chance.
None. Zero.
Yeah.
And then it's
Right.
at night, it's late, everybody's sleeping, you're
Right.
just in this thing by yourself and you're going down this rabbit hole and you're getting excited.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
hormones are raging in these young guys
Totally.
and even the girls too. And the
Yeah.
women, the girls are getting extorted not for money, but they're getting extorted for their images. And I
Yes.
know
Right.
some stories that it's over a very, very long period of time, months, if
Mm.
not years, where they're taking
Wow.
images and they leave her alone, and then they come back and they do it all over again. They send more images, and she's just sending images every once in a while to keep them at bay.
Yeah.
And so then they take the images and then they sell those images to groups like mine, and then they build the Danny Roberts account, and then when they start sending pictures, they're using their pictures to use the guys to get the money.
Right. Wow. And a lot of this is being done on encrypted messaging platforms. So Facebook recently added end-to-end encryption to their messenger,
Right.
meaning that only the people involved in the conversation can see the messages. Anyone that tries to access it, it gets like encrypted and they can't read it or see it. So that's why there's so many groups pushing back on encrypted messaging, because it allows for crimes against children. I mean, predators use only encrypted message platforms to get these things from children. So,
it's that the sad part is you have to go down the hard road right now and say, hey, if you're not 18, you can't have it. And if you get it, you're going to get a ticket or whatever it is, and make it like alcohol or tobacco and all the other things that are happening that are extremely harmful, less harmful, honestly.
Yeah. What do you think about, so definitely I'm having that rule is if nothing changes with regards to the safety of these platforms, my children will not be on them. I had a mom reach out to me recently, and she did withhold social media, and now her son is 17, and she's like, he just wants Snapchat now to talk to his friends. And I feel like he's going to be 18. He's going to be able to sign up. So shouldn't he do it under my roof so I can manage it? That way, when he's 18, he has some experience with some guidance. What do you feel about that?
That's a tough one, right? And that's where I was. I'm 8 weeks from 18. I didn't care what he was doing on social media. I was ready for him to move out of my house and go and live in one of my apartments that I have. I was like, see ya. But it's a tough question. I think every single person, every parent needs to soul search a little bit and figure out what's best for them. But I don't know. Snapchat is the worst of them all because the messages disappear on there, So I don't understand why as a parent you'd even want to consider something like that. Instagram is probably a lot safer. It's just pictures and messages for the most part. So
well, in the same mom to me said, well, all of his baseball team and the coach, they all communicate via Snapchat, and so he's the only one that doesn't get the updates for his team. It's like,
I'm sorry, can you go back? You froze up on me. She said what?
Yeah, so she said that his baseball team, all the coach and the teammates all communicate via Snapchat. So he's not even involved in his team's communication. I mean,
well, that's bad coaching. I mean, there's no reason, and we deal with that too. My kids are in competitive dance and gymnastics and all the things too, my girls, and everybody wants to do Facebook groups and stuff. And it's like, when I was in high school, I didn't have social media for a long time, actually. And my 10-year class reunion 10 years ago, more than that now, we did everything on social media, and I didn't even go. They said, why aren't you going? I said, I didn't get an invitation. They said, well, they sent out invitations on Facebook. I'm like, I don't have Facebook, and they didn't send me an invitation. I'm not going. So it was one of those things, and I think it's a bad thing for coaches to do. I think it should be a tool, and if coaches want to say, hey, we have this, but we also have an email list or a text message list or something, to have it on Snapchat of all places is just a little bit bizarre to me. But
we got to take a step back from being so reliant on social media to communicate with people. Like, there's so many other options that don't have access to harmful things for children. So when it comes to the team communications, also sometimes school communications, teachers will be like, well, everybody's on Snapchat or Instagram. They'll get my notification if I put it on there. They're not going to get it if I email them. But that's wrong. And so anything related to organized sports or schools, we have to not use social media. We can't encourage that use.
I think there's a lot of responsibility for educators to figure out better technology within their school districts too. We dealt with that with COVID. It was a disaster. Everybody's trying to fumble around and try to find online school. And there's all these great resources out there, and they're not using any of them. And schools need to find something where they can communicate with kids, and it's just on a message board or whatever it is. So that's where the communications happen, and they'll use it when their teachers are putting assignments there and announcements are there. They'll just get used to using it, and they'll figure it out. But every school district just has to decide how they want to do it, because Facebook isn't the answer, and neither is Snapchat or any of the others.
No. And I mean, I could go on. We could talk a long time. We won't on school-issued devices. School-issued devices, I'm doing a whole episode on it, and it's turning out to be pretty long and in-depth, because the kids are they're not only accessing the school lesson. They're able to get on all this other crap. And so teachers are reporting that if they're on a school issued device, maybe 50% of the time they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Some kids, 100% of the time, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So if we can't lock down the school issued device so they can't access Facebook and YouTube, like why are devices that schools give you have social media on them? I'm
Yeah.
just at a loss.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
crazy.
I'm tracking it back to like the early 2010s when these tech companies sold all of these cheap devices to schools, and we just sort of jumped all in without research that kids actually don't even learn better off of a device than they do paper.
Yeah.
So we've really made a mess of that.
Our
So
university was one of the early on to do that at Northern Michigan
mm-hmm,
University here in Marquette,
mm-hmm,
Michigan. They did that
mm-hmm,
years ago. I was part of that. They got a laptop for 10,000 students, and everybody got one.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
they did a huge WiMAX thing. You can get Wi-Fi wirelessly for
yeah.
hundreds of miles now with their WiMAX that they built, which is
Wow.
cool. And all those things are great. It was a great infrastructure, and they're
Mm-hmm,
selling it to the community and stuff now too, which is a great option. But at the end of the day,
mm-hmm.
in a university setting, it's probably okay. But when we're dealing with it on the school setting, Jordan had a school issued laptop that he used all
Mm-hmm.
the time for everything. It wasn't just schoolwork. So I understand that.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no opt out option. Like even my kids in kindergarten, I'm like, I don't want my kid to use that. So, but there's no choice.
Yeah.
um, okay. All right, John, I think we need to wrap up here. So listen, thank you so much for responding to my message and just being open to having this conversation. Every time you talk about this and tell this story, and every time Jordan is mentioned, we're saving a life. We're educating another parent that can prepare their child because, like you said, every child is going to get hit by this. Every adult is going to get hit by this. So through Jordan's story, you're saving lives. And so thank you so much for speaking out on this.
Yeah, we have to, and I'll just end with a quick story. It was just a couple
Yeah.
months ago. A mother from Colorado, I believe, messaged me
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I have four boys. I saw you on Fox News like 6 months prior, and
Mm-hmm.
at that time, I sat all four boys down and I said, "Hey, this stuff's happening. This kid in Michigan," and told them the story, showed them the videos, all of it, showed my
Yeah.
interview with Fox, and that couple nights before she messaged me, she said my youngest came downstairs and said, "Hey, mom, you remember that kid, that football player in Michigan that killed himself?" And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah." He's like, "It's happening to me right now." So
Oh my
it's
God.
those are the stories that I get, and that's the stuff that fuels me because here I am. We're telling our story in every single platform. Your audience is completely different from what I did yesterday. So we're just
Mm-hmm.
getting it out as much as we can because those stories are rolling in all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how I know this is so much bigger than it is because here's
Mm-hmm.
a story they haven't told anybody. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I got another horrific story last week that almost was ended in tragedy. I mean, the young man almost died, and they
Oh my
caught him
God.
and saved him. And now they're dealing with all the aftermath after it because he's still alive, and the parents are having a
Mm-hmm.
horrible time and all these things. So it's just everybody needs to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, John, for being so open.